And you can write this down. The most important pursuit in life is to be single. Totally single. Say that with me. Say it again loud, together. The most important thing in life is to be totally single. Say it again. The most important thing in life is to be totally single. I know you don't believe that yet. So I'm going to prove that before we leave here. Number 2, singleness is the foundation of all relationships. Say that with me. Singleness is the foundation of all relationships. And that includes you and your boss, student and teacher, parents and children, citizens and politicians, friends, colleagues, and of course, in relationships that are more intimate, like marriage. Your singleness is the foundation of all of those relationships. How you get along on your job is totally determined by your singleness. Number 3, singleness determines the quality of relationships personally, socially, and professionally. I want you to take this to heart, please. If you're having problems on your job, getting along with people, that's a singleness problem. If you always seem to have tension with people in your office or on the job as a plumber, or always having fights and stress relationships in your department or in the police force or in the hotel, wherever you work, that's a sign that you are suffering from a singleness problem. If you're having problems personally with your spouse, that's a sign that you and your spouse are both perhaps struggling with a singleness problem. I want to prove that tonight from some facts based on scripture. Let me first of all begin with this concept. The most important relationship in life is not interpersonal relationship. Most of us probably focus too much on getting along with other people. Matter of fact, this is why they got single bars and single dance and single boat rides and single, everyone trying to go to these places so they can get along with someone else or find someone else. And I want to suggest to you that that is not your priority. Your most important relationship is not interpersonal relationship, but it is intra-personal relationship. Your first and most important relationship you should develop is not with other people, but with yourself. That is called intra-personal relationships. And why is this so important? Because the most important person you should desire to know is not other people, but yourself. And the average person in this planet know very little about the truth about themselves. They keep putting on other people's images. We live other people's expectations. We allow society to create us, and instead of having a self-concept, we have an other concept. That means we have a picture that people want us to look like. And this third point is important. Self-knowledge is the key to all relationships. Even knowledge of your strengths may be important to you, but also your weaknesses are important. You have to know where you are weak. Because if you don't know where you are weak in your own self, that will become a hindrance to all relationships you have. You need to know what you have to manage. I think a lot of us know some things about ourselves that we deny. We sometimes want to say that someone made us do certain things, when in fact we decided to do it because of our tendencies, and we need to manage those things. We must be careful that we don't blame other people for ourselves. And point number 4, the most important person for you to love is not other people, but it's you. If I was to Say my most important point tonight. This is it right here. The most important person for you to love is you. Say that with me. The most important person for me to love is myself. Say it again. The most important person for me to love is who? Myself. I want to prove that also tonight, because that is part of your conditions of stress. We always talk about loving our neighbor, and we even misquote the scriptures in this regard. But let me just give you something. Let's look at a scripture for a minute where we get this idea from. Jesus was asked a question by someone. It's a very important question. And to understand the question, you got to understand who was talking. The person who asked him the question was a Pharisee. A Pharisee was a religious leader of that day. Pharisees were trained in all the laws of Moses and the prophets. There were 669 laws, write that down, you're going to remember that the Pharisees tried to obey. In other words, they studied the whole Old Testament, especially the first 5 books called the Pentateuch, the books of Moses, and they extracted every single law or anything that looks like a law. They extracted it because they wanted to obey them so they could be righteous before God. So there were 669 laws when they counted them up. Now that's a lot of laws to try and remember. I won't talk about trying to keep. No wonder why they were always frustrated, because they were far, you see. That's why they call it sad, you see. They were sad, you see. They were trying to do this stuff that was so tough. And it's very interesting. One of them came to Jesus and asked a very important question, and I think it's the kind of question you and I would want to ask too. In other words, look, I grew up in my father's Jewish house. I've been to the synagogue. I took theology. I'm a Pharisee. I've been trying to get this thing to work for the last, 50 years of my life. Look, Jesus, you seem to be very smart. Okay, can you just tell me, out of all the 69 laws, here was a question, which one is the greatest to keep? In other words, if I was going to keep one law more than all the others, what's the most important law for a human to keep before God? That was a good question. Because 669 is just too many to remember. And I won't even talk about trying to keep. So can you boil it down for me, Jesus? Just break it down. Just give me the main one. And his answer blew their minds. He didn't say, don't commit adultery, don't steal, don't lie, don't curse, don't worship other gods. He didn't say that. He just said the most important law is this: to love the Lord your God with all your heart and all your soul and all of your mind. And then he did something the man didn't ask. The man asked him for one answer. And that's important. But he gave him 2 answers to one question. Why? Because he couldn't answer the question with one answer, because the question required 2 answers. Now notice what the answers were. He said, first of all, you should love God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength. But then he kicks in. He says, and the second one is just like the first. Now the man didn't ask you for the second one. There's only one question. But you see, Jesus said, look, the second one is connected to the first. Love God with all your heart, your mind, your soul, your strength. See, a lot of us find it easy to say we love God. We worship, we give, I love you, Lord. I praise you, Lord. And you're faithful to church, and you're always going out to these meetings and prayer meetings, and you go witnessing. And God said, okay, that's fine. But what about the second part? I know you love me. But he says, the second one is just like the first one, which means they are equal. He says, and the second one is like the first one, and here it is: you must love your neighbor as you love yourself. And then he says, all the 669 laws are in this one law. If you keep this one law, you don't need the 669. Love God, love yourself, love your neighbor. Now, I want you to read that verse very carefully. He did not say love your neighbor first.